Like if you're expecting us to be on time. People that that's right.
Okay, let's move on. I'm moving around President Day. He's entitled. Are you sure you know what is it? Good.
No, please.
Okay, now we got it.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. And on behalf of the chaplaincy here at Heathrow and Heathrow Airport, we give you a very warm welcome to Heathrow today. We just get the volume turned up a little bit.
Yeah, we're not hearing it back yet.
Okie doke. How's that? Is that any better? Okay, knock out a bit more than Tim. The other alternative is that I just put on my preaching voice, which of course is the possibility. And okay, I'll just raise my voice a little bit and we will move the speaker down a little bit. That's another option that we've got. We also just are keeping in mind that we want to get the sound going through to those on Zoom. We do have a few folk on Zoom and we'll also just make sure that we speak up a bit more. And is that okay? Is that okay? Good? Okay, very good. Excellent. Well, in all the months of planning for this, I never quite imagined that I would be saying, on this auspicious day, I welcome you to Heathrow, with no disrespect to IACAC and the annual conference and so on. We are very mindful there's a big day today that we welcome you to London. We appreciate that for some of you, it's not been the easiest of journeys to get here. We thank you for your perseverance in that. And some of you have changed your plans so that you're here, and we do thank you for all that you've done in order for that to happen. Now it just comes to me, first of all, to give you a welcome, and we're glad to see you all here in London. And I'm just going to speak for a little bit while they tell me that they're in the right place to do the thing that's next. One of the things with having, this is Sam and Tim, they're two of our children involved in doing this. Is that they quite readily say, Dad, we just leave you to waffle if we need you to fill in a little bit of space. And, children are quite good for saying that sort of thing. But we do give you a very warm welcome to London, and we just have a little video that we want to play to you to welcome you to London just at this point. Thanks, Tim.
Not Paddington Bear, is it?
Almost. You see that Paddington is there. Here. Okay, here we go.
I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
We do. This is travelling standby.
Just got upgraded.
Yes, it did.
Bigger screen.
Okay, 2 ticks and we'll be there. You can agree amongst yourselves what the delay code will be. Yes, one of the things I was going to leave for a moment or two to explain, but we are basically the hotel's first major post-COVID conference. So some of the technology and things like that, it's actually the first time it's been used for about 3 years. So we did wonder whether there would be one or two issues with it. So that's why we've got this as plan B, and this will work in just a moment. Yeah, just start from the middle. Are you able to see it from the back?
I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
Those good-looking people in that. The hotel's internet as well, so.
Tim, for putting that together. Just go back to the presentation. Thanks. Well, the next thing for me to do is to introduce our subject for the week, which is the subject of adversity. And 2 years ago, 3 years ago, when we were putting the initial sort of proposals together, and you know what it's like with a big project, you have your risk register and all those kind of things. I don't think putting global pandemic and death of the Queen on that would have gone down too well, but nevertheless, that's what we have had to deal with, along with a whole range of other things. I do remember when I was a young fledgling speaker, preacher, going around starting to do a bit of preaching, a couple of wise heads did sort of pull me to one side and say, listen, Steve, just be careful the subjects you choose to preach on. Sometimes God does have a way of testing you on the teaching that you give when you preach. If you find out on the team who suggested adversity, do let me know, please, because I would quite like the word. Okay. And yes, we have certainly been through one or two interesting things and experiences in terms of putting the conference together, not least the fact that it wasn't until Easter that we actually had the final decision to go ahead. So please just bear with us. There will be one or two things perhaps during the week that maybe would not be quite as smooth as I'm sure historically these things have gone. But nevertheless, we hope you have a really enjoyable time. If Tim, we can just move it on to a few more, please. Thanks. And yes, just onto that one. Thanks. Just go back. Thanks. Okay, so the theme of the week in terms of adversity really is coming. We're very conscious of coming out of COVID and how that has influenced our lives over the last couple of years. I think as people of faith, we would have the view that this has been allowed, permitted to happen. And therefore, there are things that we can learn from it. And to go back to how things were just before is probably a wasted opportunity. And our thinking in terms of having the conference based around the theme of adversity is that there's much over the last 2 or 3 years that we would not have chosen. When you think of all the change that's happened in our industry, all the people who have lost their jobs, all the issues that have taken place. And yet, there are no doubt things that we can learn from that. And as we look forward to a post-COVID aviation industry, I trust there are things that we think that we can take from what we have learned over the last 2 or 3 years to be stronger, to be better, to be more serving as chaplains together. And indeed, this draws on a much greater principle, doesn't it, of the way in which whenever we go through adversity, of which we all face things in our lives, there are things to learn from it. That the issue, the difficulty is not wasted, that we learn from it. And indeed, from that comes hope for the future. And from the difficulties that we pass through and learn from, we become stronger and more capable to face things in the future. We are very conscious that today has been a very big day in the UK. And we thought it would be right to acknowledge that. And what we're going to do, if it's okay, without being unduly patriotic, is we thought we would have just a moment's quiet, and then we would have the national anthem, and then we would introduce some of the things that we're going to think about by using some of the words of the Queen. And we also have a hymn that has been written specially for this particular time. So just bear with us as we get the technology together. But first of all, we'll just have a moment's quiet. Some of the team have worked very hard today so that we can have this evening to happen. And we just thought it would be good just to have a moment's quiet and a moment's pause and have some quiet. Sam will then play the national anthem. If you wish to stand for that, then fine. If you don't wish to, no hard feelings there at all. And then we'll go into a specially written hymn as well. So we'll just have a few moments silence as we reflect and give thanks for the great life of the late departed Her Majesty the Queen. This hymn was specially written for this current situation. We felt that it would be best, rather than try and sing hymns as a collective together, we would have this to a well-known tune that some of you will recognise, and hopefully the words will also come up on here as well. We're just hopefully the internet will be strong enough to do it.
We see tears and celebration for this life so dignified, bearing thanks and hearts of sadness to the God of death and life, as he takes her to his promise of an audience with the King. We remember all she gave us, wreaths of gratitude we bring. In these days of change and trial, be the rock on which we stand. When we fear in this new season, hold us firmly in your hands. May we rise to her example, to be humble, kind and fair, swift to pray and slow to anger, choosing faith and not despair. In the midst of coronation, she once knelt in silent prayer. Oil was poured in Christ's commission, called to lead her people there. May we know that same anointing, move in royal authority, speak liberty and healing to a world in need of peace.
Now I'm going to use a couple of the quotes that we have from Her Majesty the Queen we just use them on the PowerPoint, thanks to him. And we'll use these to introduce the next part, which is some poetry that we have from across the different faith groups that make up Heathrow. First of all, a quote from Her Majesty the Queen regarding adversity and difficulty. She said this in one of her Christmas Day speeches a few years ago. Through the many changes I have seen over the years, faith, family, and friendship have been not only a constant for me, but a source of personal comfort and reassurance. A great reminder of those three F's there of faith, of family, and friendship. Next quote that we picked out, says this: "For me, the life of Jesus Christ, the Prince of Peace, is an inspiration and an anchor in my life. A role model of reconciliation and forgiveness, he stretched out his hands in love, acceptance, and healing. Christ's example has taught me to seek to respect and value all people of whatever faith or none." So move on from some things to do with the Queen. And what we have is some poetry and then a psalm and then a reading from across several faith groups. I'm going to call first of all upon Rob to come and give us a reading from the Buddhist tradition. Thank you very much, Rob.
Excuse the creaking, everybody. Just to quickly put this into context, this was one of the first sermons of the Buddha that was written down 200 years after his death and parinirvana, and it forms the very core of Buddhist thought, Buddhist belief. It's called the Karaniya Metta Sutta, which is advice on loving kindness. Can you hear me now? Thank you, Mother. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud or demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium or short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and those to be born, may all beings be at their ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart one should cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies and downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, free from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. Okay.
Next we have Ramesh, who's going to come and speak to us as well. Thank you very much. Again, if Ramesh, you would introduce what you're going to say. Thank you.
Namaskar, namaste, hello everyone. Today is first time I'm joining this conference. Many conference outside Ireland, Yaniji been there, I never been. So first time I will chant this called poem. Aarti is universal prayer. So if you can chant with me, is up to you. Otherwise, you can enjoy.
Nearly 46 million people, men, women and children, are living in slave-like conditions in the world.
Swami Jaya Jagadish Hare, Bhakt Jano ke Sankat, Das Jano ke Sankat, Chhan mein dur kare. Om Jai Jagadish Hare, Jo ध्यावे फल पावे, दुख विनाशे मन का, सुख संपत्ति घर आवे, कष्ट मिटे तन का। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, मात पिता तुम मेरे, शरण गहन किसकी, तुम बिन और न दूजा, आस करुण जिसकी। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, तुम पूर्ण परमात्मा, तुम अंतर्यामी, स्वामी तुम अंतर्यामी, पार ब्रह्म परमेश्वर, तुम सबके स्वामी। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, तुम करुणा के सागर, तुम पालन करता, स्वामी तुम पालन करता। मैं रख खल कानी, मैं सेवक तुम स्वामी, कृपा करो भरता। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, तुम हो एक अगोचर, सबके प्राणपति, सबके प्राणपति। किस विधि मिले दयामय, किस विधि मिले कृपामय, तुमको मैं कुमति। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, दीन बंधु दुख हरता, ठाकुर तुम मेरे, प्रभु रक्षक तुम मेरे। करुणा हस्त उठाओ, करुणा हस्त उठाओ, द्वार पड़ा मैं तेरे। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, विषय विकार मिटाओ, पाप हरो देवा, स्वामी पाप हरो देवा। श्रद्धा भक्ति बढ़ाओ, श्रद्धा प्रेम बढ़ाओ, संतन की सेवा। ओम जय जगदीश हरे, ओम जय जगदीश हरे, स्वामी जय जगदीश हरे। भक्त जनों के संकट, दास जनों के संकट, क्षण में दूर करें। ओम जय जगदीश हरे। ओम शांति शांति शांति। ओम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्.
Thank you very much. Next, we have a reading from the Psalms, a psalm that is very much connected with adversity, and Bruce is going to read Psalm 23 to us. Thank you. Perhaps one of the most well-known of Psalms.
The Lord is my shepherd. I lack nothing. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. He refreshes my soul. He guides me along the right paths. For his name's sake, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil. For you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Bruce, thanks much. Next, we're going to have a little musical piece, and this is a well-known, in some circles anyway, a well-known hymn, and after Sam started playing it, I'll give you the story, the history behind it. Some of the words are based on the Christian scriptures, but also too, it came, as I'll explain in a moment, out of the deep experience of the person concerned. In 1870, Horatio Gates Spafford was a successful Chicago lawyer with every reason to be thankful to God. However, in 1871, his 4-year-old son died. While struggling with this personal tragedy, the Great Chicago Fire of the same year reduced the family's property investments and financial security to ashes. What remained was seriously devalued in the financial downturn that followed. To give the family time and space to recover, Horatio made plans for him, his wife and 4 daughters to travel to Europe. Boarding the SS Ville de Havre in November 1873, a business emergency forced Horatio to remain in Chicago while the family went on board. In mid-Atlantic, the ship had collided with another ship, the Locker, and sank in 12 minutes, with the loss of many of the passengers and crew. Several days later, he received a telegram from his wife in Wales, her name was Anna, that simply said, "Saved alone." All 4 of their daughters were lost. Horatio immediately set off for Wales to bring his wife home. On the crossing to Wales, the ship's captain summoned him to the bridge, informing him that, by his careful reckoning, "I believe we are now passing the place where the ship was wrecked." Spafford returned to his cabin, and that night wrote the words which became the hymn, "It is well with my soul," to which Arthur Bliss later added the melody. Some time later, he and his wife left America for Israel and settled in part of Jerusalem. They fed the needy, the poor, sick and homeless, and their work became known as the American Colony and was the subject of a Nobel Prize winning novel, Jerusalem. His wife Anna once remarked, "We are saved for a purpose. It's easy to be grateful and good when you have much, but take care that you are not a fair weather friend to God." It is well with my soul. Tremendous words to be able to say when through adversity, God is able to transform it and use it as a wonderful inspiration to what has become a very well-known and well-loved hymn. Thank you, Sam. Next we have a reading, thank you very much, Stephen, from the Gospels. This is a reading to do with adversity that I think is particularly fitting to do with chaplaincy. Thank you very much, Steve.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. Yes, I'm reading from the Gospel according to Luke, chapter 24, commencing at verse 13. On the road to Emmaus. Now, that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. As they walked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them, but they were kept from recognizing him. He asked them, "What are you discussing together as you walk along?" They stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, called Cleopas, asked him, "Are you only a visitor to Jerusalem and do not know the things that have happened in these days?" "What things?" he asked. "About Jesus of Nazareth," they replied. "He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and other rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what is more, it is the 3rd day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but didn't find his body. They came and told us that they had seen a vision of angels who said he was alive." Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said, but him they did not see. He said to them, "How foolish you are, and how slow of heart to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Christ have to suffer these things and then enter his glory?" And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all of the scriptures concerning himself. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus acted as if he was going further. But they urged him strongly, "Stay with us, for it is nearly evening. The day is almost over." So he went in to stay with them. When he was at the table with them, he took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then their eyes were opened, and they recognized him, and he disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while he talked with us on the road and opened the scriptures to us?" They got up and returned at once to Jerusalem. There they found the 11 and those with them assembled together and saying, "It is true, the Lord has risen and has appeared to Simon." Then the two told what had happened on the way and how Jesus was recognized by them when he broke the bread.
Thank you, Stephen. Particularly fitting, I think, for chaplaincy in this sense, that they're in adversity. It was somebody coming alongside and walking the pathway with them that changed their perspective. I'm not at all suggesting we have to be miraculous in our appearance with people. But how many times have we proven that to be true? That walking alongside somebody can make such a difference to them. Well, we have had the way that adversity can inspire poetry, adversity can inspire song, hymn. Well, we're going to have the way in which adversity can inspire film. And thank you again for our next piece of music. Thank you, Sam. And do we have a picture up on the screen? Thanks then, Tim. Thank you.
This next piece of music, Chariots of Fire, was composed by the Greek musician Vangelis. One of the reasons for choosing this was that he died earlier this year. He also once remarked that while it was his most successful piece, he didn't consider it his best, and several other pieces that he wrote he considered musically superior. This is an interesting reflection in the context of adversity, as it is tempting to choose easy success over difficulty. The other main reason was because of the story of Eric Liddell, the film of whose life the music was written for. Eric Liddell was born in 1902 to missionary parents in China. He attended school there and also in England and Scotland. Eric was an outstanding athlete, and while at university, he became well known for being the fastest runner in Scotland. He was due to compete in the 100 metres at the 1924 Paris Olympics. However, trials were scheduled for a Sunday, the day Eric devoted to worship and rest, as he was a devout Christian. His faith was more important than running, and he announced he would be withdrawing from the 100-metre sprint. The people of Scotland were furious, believing that he had crushed their hopes of a win for their country. They now saw Eric as a disgrace. I'm sure we all know of those, and have perhaps experienced it ourselves, who have found themselves facing adversity because of sticking to religious convictions. Eric's response to that adversity was to train hard for the 400 metres, and he surprised everyone by breaking the world record, earning himself the gold medal. Faith and hard work combined in a response to adversity that has been inspirational to many since. What is perhaps less well known is that Eric Liddell continued to believe that adversity was worth facing. He sacrificed his comfortable life in Scotland and became a missionary in China for 20 years with his wife. When World War II reached China, it became a dangerous place to live. Eric made the difficult decision to send his wife and children to safety in Canada, while he stayed in China to help the wounded and share his faith. He had a view on a greater victory than just a gold medal and said this: "Circumstances may appear to wreck our lives and God's plans, but God is not helpless among the ruins. God's love is still working. He comes in and takes the calamity and uses it victoriously, working out his wonderful plan of love."
Thank you, Judy. Well, I hope that's been an interesting introduction and some reflections on the concept of adversity, and particularly that sense in which adversity is tough, yes, but adversity can also inspire. Adversity can bring hope. And I trust that out of this week, as we will reflect at times on adversity and the difficulties that we have been through over COVID, but also it will inspire us and help us as we look forward to a post-COVID industry. Now, just to give you a little bit of an introduction to the programme, I think that many of you have had it and have seen it, but I am quite aware, casting aspersions on anyone in particular, that you can give people bits of paper and you can communicate things. It doesn't necessarily mean that people have read it. So I'll just go through one or two of the highlights as to what we're going to do. Each morning, there will be a morning meditation on the theme of adversity from some of the faith groups within the chaplaincy. Tomorrow morning, we'll start with one of the directors from the airport will come and speak to us, and he will highlight some of the things that Heathrow have done and in coming through COVID and his thoughts on the future. And then that theme of the future will carry on. We have one of the leading lecturers in the UK from Cranfield University, which is, I would say, our leading university on aviation in the UK. She is going to speak about the future of aviation and well, whether or not we'll all be getting on board a drone in our back garden to go and sort of go alongside people in the sky, and that's what chaplaincy will look like in the future. Well, she certainly has some very interesting insight on what the future of aviation looks like. And of course, things do change. And we know that aviation is a relatively young industry. In fact, if you were to hold an aviation chaplains conference 150 years ago, you wouldn't have had too many attendees. Nobody would have known what aviation was really, never mind aviation chaplains. Well, we'll then have a session about change, and it'll be an interesting session about what are some of the things that hinder us from changing in moving on, and that's going to be an interesting session. And we'll also touch on some of the things that have been contributed regarding the way in which technology has changed chaplaincy during COVID and some ideas that people have. And then in the afternoon, we'll have what will, I'm sure, be a very interesting presentation from the Salvation Army regarding particular adversity that we can help people with and the issues to do with trafficking and modern slavery. And I'm sure that, like you, we are concerned about that at Heathrow, and that will be a very interesting talk, I'm sure. Then in the afternoon, we have the IACAC business meeting. I don't know that that necessarily needs to fit in with the theme of adversity, but Pierre will chair that admirably, I'm sure. And then in the evening, there is a time of after dinner for bowling, just along the way. It's about a 10-minute walk from here. We thought it was too good an opportunity to pass by, being that close for those that would like to do that. On Wednesday, we have a talk, first of all, by Heathrow Travel Care. They are our social services colleagues that have an office here at Heathrow. They are celebrating their 50th anniversary this year, and they will give an interesting talk on the practical help that they give to those facing adversity. It isn't just about first-class business trips and fantastic holidays, is it, being at the airport? And there's such a range of people, and they regularly deal with those that are would often be looked down on and perhaps ignored at the airport, and we work very closely with our colleagues there. And then after the coffee break, we have a senior representative from the Church of England who's coming along, Bishop Lusa, and he used to be, in his previous role, one of the leading experts within the Church of England on working with difference. And one of the things that can cause not necessarily adversity, but certainly a bit of friction within chaplaincies is working with those who see the world differently. And I'm sure it'll be a very interesting talk that he will give in regard to that. Then in the afternoon, we will be taking a coach in groups because they can only handle part of this size group at a time, to the British Airways Training Centre. And we'll get a tour around there of sometimes when our customers face adversity and things like going down the emergency chutes and things like that. They will show us how the crew are trained to handle emergencies such as that. Don't worry. When I explained the group, they said, shall we make do with a tour rather than make it too interactive? But I think you'll get a sense of just even looking at the height of the slides and things like that. If we are ever involved in an emergency at the airport, just what the passengers that we're dealing with have been through. There are one or two of the chaplains here at Heathrow who were involved one time I'm sure you've seen the pictures when a British Airways short-haul aircraft returned, just literally with the aircraft, with the engine cowls having shall we say, not stayed affixed in the place where they started affixed to put it diplomatically. The aircraft landed, and because of the emergency, the passengers did come down the chutes, and it was interesting when they came to the terminal building. They were very happy to talk to a chaplain first, having flown around taking pictures of what they thought was the engine falling apart. And of course, it wasn't quite as serious as that. But we do have a role to play, don't we, in emergency situations, in that real adversity that just occasionally passengers face. And I'm sure we'll find that interesting. We'll need to go in groups of 20 around that, and they have very kindly agreed to do that, a tour for us. And so we'll just stagger our departure at half-hour intervals. There's instructions and so on that we'll give nearer the time. Please do make sure, though, for that time that you have either your UK driving license if you're from the UK, or your passport if you're either not from the UK, or even if you are. They need photographic ID because we are going within a semi-secure part of the airport. We're not going for the airside, but it is a place where you can't get to as a member of the public, and so they will be giving us passes to do that. Then when we come back, we will have a little bit of a time, but then we'll be going into Windsor. I don't think you'll get on the telly if that's what you're thinking about from what we've seen today. Please do bear with us. There will still be an element of Windsor being disrupted because, as you can imagine, the size of the operation that's been going on is quite significant. It was suggested to me by the board this morning that I do just put into context what's been going on in the UK today. The Metropolitan Police estimate that this was the largest operation security-wise possibly in their whole history. 500 overseas heads of state and dignitaries coming in. As you saw from the pictures, thousands and thousands of people. And if you think that our police force has some strange names, on the back of some of them, Headloo, that isn't some strange word for police. It's actually just Welsh for police. They have been bussing in police from all over the UK to police the operation. It has been absolutely huge what has been going on. It's a very significant event for the UK. So apologies again if there are those of you that got your travel plans disrupted. The security operation even in Windsor is not insignificant at all. And we lived nearby to Windsor, and various roads closed all day today, and there will still be some of that equipment in place. We're not quite sure where the coach is going to be able to find a spot just to drop us off, but then what we're hoping, and this is a little bit subject to confirmation, is that we'll get into Windsor a little bit early, maybe around about 6 o'clock. You've just got an hour or so of free time if you want to go and find some souvenirs or whatever. If you would like a little walking tour around, I will bring my umbrella or whatever, and I will very happily walk you around. Windsor's one of my favourite places, competes with Heathrow. As one of my favourite places. Judy here is shaking her head. She knows full well that Heathrow wins that hands down. But Windsor is a very close second. I very much enjoy Windsor. And I'm very happy if some of you perhaps haven't been there before and you'd like half an hour or so of being walked around. I'd love to walk you around. That's no problem at all. But we'll be back to the boat for 7:15. Windsor's not the biggest of places, and it's fairly obvious where French Brothers boats are down there on the promenade, just down by the river. That's where we need to be for 7:15. 7:30, we start, we'll have a meal on the boat, and there'll be some music, and we'll go down the River Thames, and English weather cooperating, it will be very, very nice indeed. Then on Thursday, we have an interesting session on Thursday morning about learning from others. How have other chaplaincies, nothing to do with aviation, how have they coped with COVID, and what are their thoughts in terms of a post-COVID moving on from adversity? What are their thoughts on that? We have a couple of external speakers coming, but we've also primed them as well that there are several in the room who have non-aviation experience of chaplaincy as well, and we'll be using this mic here to make sure we get plenty of contribution from the floor as well when we come to talk about that particular subject. I'll also give you a little bit of an introduction as to the way in which the Heathrow chaplaincy is structured. There was some feedback on some previous conferences that said it's one of the useful things that you think can come out of this sort of get together is to understand how other chaplaincies are structured, because we're quite a strange lot, aren't we? In the sense of, I'm glad you laughed anyway. we are a strange lot in the sense that there is no standard pattern, is there, for the way that airport chaplaincy works. And it's quite important that we see these different models as to the way that it's done. I know that one or two chaplaincies in particular have done some research into this, and I'll be looking to not bore you by speaking for the whole length of the time. And again, we'll look to get some input from the floor as to the different ways that chaplaincies are structured and the different things that we can learn from that, because not every structure will suit every circumstance. However, there is no doubt some benefit that we can get from talking about that with each other. Then in terms of the final afternoon, a couple of interesting talks that will really focus on the positive with which to go home. Adversity isn't always as bad as we think it's going to. Lots of interest and concern around mental health and COVID, and we have an expert on mental health on the Heathrow chaplaincy who spends quite a bit of her time working with one of the leading mental health charities in the UK, and she is going to give us an insight into what the figures show in terms of mental health and COVID, and that's going to be interesting. And then we have a last speaker who has a connection with aviation chaplaincy, and he has a great story to tell in terms of adversity, but I won't steal his thunder by telling you the whole story just now. We will have a quick session after that just to get your feelings on the conference, and we trust that you would have learned and gained some things from it. And then there's a dinner down at one of the local restaurants that again is on the River Thames that we trust will be a nice way to just conclude it together. We haven't all walked out, so hopefully you sound vaguely interested in what we're going to do. I'll just hand over to Pierre for a couple of minutes, who will formally welcome everybody on behalf of the board, and there's the candle for you as well.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for all the hard work those past mountain couple of years. Organizing a conference is a lot of work, and thank you for your work. Now it just has to happen, so relax. It's very good to see you all, see you in flesh and blood. It's never been so true that, you know, meeting, shaking hands. Are we allowed to hug? We sometimes hesitate, but it's really good to see friendly faces. Most of you we've met already, a few new faces. Some of you we've met online, and that's the first time that we meet physically, but it's really amazing, and I've been missing that. I'd like to share, as I welcome you, just a few thoughts quickly, I promise, quickly, on learning through and from adversity, and to get a bit further on the theme and start introduce that conference. A few things I've learned from adversity since I've been an airport chaplain those past years, a few years. I think the first thing was, you probably remember in 2015 and again in 2016, the terrorist attacks in Paris and all the restrictions we got from that. And we were actually organizing the conference at that time also. And the good part of the restrictions, for those who were there, you remember the police escorts. That was nice, wasn't it? And the first thing I learned there was to be creative as you face adversity. And I think that's one of the first things that we can learn from adversity, being creative. When you're forced to stay home, when you can't meet as a team, when you can't go to work, when you can't go to church, you have to find ways, creative ways, to continue to be in touch with one another. And I don't want to push it further. We could comment a lot, and we can chat about, and we'll have opportunities to chat about on how we have been, and we're being creative through adversity. And that's a great thing. I think without adversity of some kind, I mean, it doesn't have to be that bad all the time, but without that, we would probably lose adversity. And if you think of artists, I don't think I know of any great artist that hasn't been struggling through his life, through something, you know. So adversity forces us to be creative. As many of you have, I got tired of Zoom. I don't know if you got tired of Zoom meetings, church meetings, or business meetings, but let's face it, they've been amazing tools to meet, to see family, to stay in touch with family and friends and churches. And those are our tools that have been really helpful to us also as an association, and that the creativity we not only to use them, but further from that on how to use them, what to do with them. And actually, it's been great because we've met on the internet. We've met more than we used to, and we've met people that we used not to meet. I don't know if John from Hong Kong, if you're over, I'd like to greet you in particular, because thanks to the Zoom, to the online conference we had in 2020, we got to kind of meet each other and be able to help a passenger together from both sides of the world. So that's one way we've been creative as an association. Another thing I've learned is that adversity is actually an amazing teacher. I've often learned, and especially those very few past years, learned it the hard way, and we probably all have. During this week, we will share in our sessions and through our personal conversation some of those adversities we've learned from. Through these, we'll learn from one another and benefit from each other's experience, sharing what we've learned and how adversity has been a teacher to us is essential. This is how we grow as persons, as chaplains. This is also how we grow as a global body, as an international organization of airport chaplains. We need that mutual experience and build together that common experience. Last thing I would like to underline is that adversity is, I don't know if you can say that in English, is a character revelator. Does it? Yeah. You understand what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I love what Archbishop Justin Webley said this morning in the very moving ceremony, the funeral of the Queen, about the Queen's servant leadership. I think that was very, very powerful. Chaplains are and need to be servants, and we are, each of us, we are servants, and we know we are. I don't need to comment more on that, I don't think so. And sometimes we need to lead. Mind you, unlike the Queen, leadership is not at the heart of each one of us' mission. Actually, only a few of us have a role in leadership in chaplaincy. As chaplains, we might have leadership roles in elsewhere, but as chaplains, some of us have that, but most of us don't. Most of us, we're simple servants. And I think we know that and we like that. But by being simple servants, I do believe that we also show the way for others, to those who need our support, as well as to those who observe us. Leaders in the airport who see how we work, and they value the service that we give to passengers and staff. In whole humility, we need to remind ourselves of these, that we are simple servants. It is a matter of both credibility and witness to the cause we serve. And it is humbling to be hosted here in London tonight, today, in this particular time, and for the week that is coming. Some of us have witnessed firsthand the devotion and expression of mourn and loss felt by the British people and so many people from all over the world. We're just a few miles here from Windsor. We've just heard, before visiting last year, I didn't know that Windsor was so close to the airport, and I knew very little about Windsor anyway, so we're so close now. Everybody knows about Windsor Castle. Yet here we are, gathering in communion and joy to meet again at last. Adversity hasn't discouraged you, Steve, and the whole team, our hosts, to fulfill your task as organizing this conference, and thank you for that, really. It has certainly added a few challenges, hasn't it? And forced you to some creativity, but thanks to you and thanks to those struggles also in some way, we are all going to have a wonderful conference. It is thus my honor and privilege to declare the 55th conference of the International Association of Civil Aviation Chaplains open.
It is now official.
Thank you very much, Pierre. And some of you know that for quite a number of years, I was a safety manager here at Heathrow, and I approve of the battery candle. I was having all sorts of dilemmas when we were planning and thinking about risk as to whether we would end up evacuating the whole hotel when we lit the candle. I'm glad to say we're not going to do that. Well, it just remains for me to say one or two closing remarks, and you'll be very glad to know that dinner is ready for us at 8 o'clock, so we are in good time. I just want to say one or two things that maybe I should have said at the start, but nevertheless, we're in here for the week, so it doesn't matter that I've left it until now. This is when I ask, has anyone had cabin crew training? Because this is where you need it, isn't it? It's to say, the emergency exits are, well, you can see the doors are all the way along here on your right-hand side. We're in the room for the whole week, and we have the whole space all the way back to the third room, although the layout will be different. For the rest of the week, we will have tables with chairs around them. Probably, again, it will just fill up to the second room. But if you want to use the third room for anything, that's absolutely fine. And the toilets, I suspect you've probably already found them, but they're out in the main area of the hotel. The ladies are just here, the gents are the other side. And if we do need to get out, sorry, I should have finished that off in an emergency, there's out this way and turn right or back out into the main area of the hotel, and you can go several ways that way to find the emergency exit. The only planned fire drill happened multiple times at 11 o'clock this morning, and I think they were just wanting to try and keep it quiet because we were watching the funeral service, and it's ended up going off multiple times, but we're not expecting it to go off again during the rest of the week. I hope that you've had one of the very nice purple Heathrow goodie bags, and lots of things in there that I hope you'll find just nice, including a very late edition, which is a little souvenir book about the Queen, and there's various things to remind you of your time here at Heathrow. I'm hoping that you also have some vouchers that look like this. You will need to bring these along at dinner time. We have a buffet that means that we can eat together today and tomorrow, but you will need to bring that voucher with you. Those of you that are here for days and who are not staying overnight, please do use the machine that's in the breakout area to put in your car registration. And for those of you that are your cars and are staying overnight, then come and see me afterwards. I'm looking around. Team, is there anything I have forgotten? Maybe what I will just say is, if you're from Heathrow, could you just stand up a moment, please? It's maybe just useful that you know the team.
Steve,
yes.
Just one thing. What about those of us who are on the day rate? We obviously don't have vouchers.
Yes, that's fine. Don't worry. You can steal it. We're not going to start it. There are enough Christians that believe in the feeding of the 5,000. Oh no, it's okay. No, there is provision for those on the day rate to also join in the meal. Adele.
Just a heads up, if people are looking for a supermarket nearby, there is one walkable. If you leave out of the front of the hotel, so not the car park side, but the other side of the hotel, turn to the right. There is a supermarket within less than 10 minutes walking. You turn to the left, there's a GFK and McDonald's within walking distance. There's a couple of things that are accessible without getting on public transport.
Yeah.
But the best website for public transport is the one on the information sheet, www.tfl.co.uk. It's on your information sheet. You want to get anywhere, plug in your destination, it will tell you how to get there by bus, train, whatever.
Okay.
Also, any of the Heathrow team can give you some
Yeah. Okay, thanks very much. Part of the reason for getting folk to stand up was just that you can see them if that helps. If you've got local questions that you want answered, they may well have an idea. I should also mention Ruth Bottoms here is the new head of chaplaincy. She only started last week, so go gentle on her. And the other reason for having folks stand up is, I would probably say it more than once, and I should say it more than once. Of course, it has been a team effort in putting this together, and you are seeing the different people and others who have contributed to it, and it's very much appreciated, all the hard work that they have been putting in. These, yes. These have been put together by the engineering department at the airport. You never quite know when it's useful to get on with people, and I never imagined that getting along with people would mean that sort of taxis would appear and things like that. But anyway, after one or two conversations with the team, the Heathrow engineers were glad to contribute, and they're not just there for decoration. If you wish to have your picture taken with them, please feel free just to go ahead. I'm not necessarily implying you want them with the IACAC one, but you can tell the treasurer always looking for a money-making opportunity. He's going to charge you £5 a go to have your photo with this. The other ones in the other room are free, and they are there for you for your amusement, London themed, so that you can have photos with them if you wish. As obviously it's going to be a little bit more tricky for getting up into London to have your photo with real ones if you wish. Well, I think that's all that we need to do today. 8 o'clock over in the restaurant that's just across the other side, and there should be a buffet and a nice place for us all to be able to sit together, enjoy the meal, and as I say already, welcome to London. I trust we'll have a great conference together. Thank you.